Welcome to Talent Bus, where I talk with SaaS companies on how they are doing their talent acquisition. Today I'm talking with Miika from Meltwater, and we are focusing on how to hire junior salespeople, how to grow them inside of the organization. And let's dig deep straight away. So can you share a bit more on why you have decided that your strategy is really kind of focusing on bringing junior people in, onboard them properly, let them space to grow inside of your company?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's much of an organizational design decision. It's also got a lot to do with our history. So just to give you some context, we're founded in the early 2000s in Norway. And until very recently, we hadn't taken any outside money. So the growth story or kind of story arc there has been organic growth through ambitious individuals who've joined the organization and then, expanded our business into different countries and different business segments. Today, we operate in 27 countries and we're over 2,000 employees so far. But I think the reason being why we do it the way we do it is, one, it's very much in our DNA. We found it to be a very good model. Up to this date. I mean, for example, in our Finnish organization today, we have a management team where everybody's gone through that newbie path. They've been in the shoes of the people that are now doing those entry-level sales jobs. So they're very, very kind of involved and know what the job is. And I think that gives also a unique angle to their leadership where they can kind of be very attentive and it just resonates because they've been in their shoes, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Do you feel it would be hard to bring in someone to your management team completely outside of the company because you have that culture of growing people?
Yeah. Honestly, I think it would be. I don't think it's a bad idea because, the approach that we have, it's very good. It has a lot of upside. But of course, then the other part of that is we may be missing some external perspective, right? But that said, we then try and get that from having talks with other companies, sparring with other leading individuals in different SaaS sales companies. So that's kind of how we try and tackle that.
Yeah. I remember reading from the news about a Finnish company called Kesko. They had this, I would say, quite similar approach. Of course, they are completely different business, completely different industry, but they had brought in their CEOs always within the company. And they noticed that one is working and they were growing. But at some point, they brought in outside CEO.
Yeah.
And actually, on those years, they grew even faster. And the big idea there was that kind of if you bring someone from the outside, you will get kind of outside of the box ideas. Because easily, if a person has joined the company like many years ago, they have kind of learned how they are doing the things. And then it might be kind of hard to challenge on like outside of the box idea rather than, hey, here's the way that we used to do it all the time.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And that's an interesting anecdote. I feel like we're already doing that in, our very upper management.
Yeah.
At the ED level. There's been some big changes over the past year. We've brought on a lot of external hires there where previously we hadn't really. So I think that'll kind of drip down and resonate to the kind of line organizations at some point.
Exactly. When we look at the kind of hiring, I think nowadays it is quite hard actually to find senior, for example, salespeople.
Yeah.
Because every SaaS company is kind of looking for them and trying to get them pay more salaries and all that. So I can kind of imagine that when you go through the road that you have chosen, kind of bringing more junior people, it might be a bit easier to find those candidates. So can you share a bit more kind of what different sources do you have for finding those people?
For the junior candidates?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think when we're looking at junior candidates, I think that's going to be different for all companies, right? I think we should, start out with defining what a junior candidate is for us. And the kind of profile that we typically target is somebody who's a recent graduate. They might be just graduating, recently graduated. Typically, they have some sales background, maybe in retail. Some already have some B2B sales experience. But that's kind of the sweet spot we're targeting. And they typically have a university or applied sciences background in business. Very curious about sales, about SaaS. And then we kind of work backwards from there, right? Where are these people and how do we best get in touch with them? So, of course, we have your typical, LinkedIn presence is strong. But I think the one thing that really separates us is we do a lot of student and school collaborations.
Yeah.
For example, we have contracts with all the Finnish business student unions. And we have, predetermined stuff that we do in each year with each business student union. For example, Aalto, their business student union. We have a bunch of stuff lined up. We're in their social media channels, email lists. We do events, after work stuff. And then we just kind of repeat the process for all the schools that we target, basically. And the thinking there is, the more somebody during their school years, the more exposure they get to Meltwater, the more we're going to be top of mind when they're actually looking for a job. And of course, we do direct headhunting as well. And I think every talent professional watching this knows what a tricky market it is right now. So heavy outbound strategy, but that's also, I think, it's not sustainable to do completely outbound, right?
Exactly. And I think kind of building that awareness is super crucial. But I think kind of a challenge on that one might be that what I've heard from some recruiters and some SaaS founders is like, how do you turn that awareness to employees? So even though kind of, for example, you're working with all the closely, people are kind of getting that awareness. So kind of, do you trust only on the fact that like, hey, now you have awareness, and then when you do outreach, they know you, or if they are interested, they might to send you an application. But like, do you do some kind of like events where you really try to kind of get them interested in working in Meltwater? Like, for example, some kind of speed dating stuff, and like people can super easily apply or share that, hey, I would be interested in working for you.
Yeah, it's a good question. Typically, the events that we've done, we're actually not going to that many career fairs these days. I feel like they're a little bit outdated as a model. Plus, they're not very targeted, right? So what we do is we invite students from those business student unions to come to us, come to our office. And we've had a couple of these so far this year, and I think it's a very good concept in the sense that of course, we talk about Meltwater, but we also talk about why B2B and SaaS sales is a very kind of attractive career path for them. Because I feel like in general, that's something, at least in Finland, and this is just my gut feeling, is that sales is, for university students, it's not kind of the primary career path that they want to do. It's either consulting or finance or one of the more traditionally prestigious ones, right? But to our events, it has a Meltwater path typically, or talk. And then we also talk about sales. And I often see students, they have a little bit of an aha moment, I think the kind of message that we want to get across is sales is a very valuable path to start your career. And whatever you do after sales, even if you don't kind of go the long-term sales path, it's going to benefit you.
Exactly. And I think that kind of approach actually could work even though you wouldn't be hiring junior people. Because what, for example, I've noticed is that kind of in our current business situation, like the first people we are bringing in won't be super junior ones. We need to bring more senior people in. But then at the same time, kind of we know that at some point we want to bring in juniors. But then at the same time, I know those who are currently juniors, they will be the seniors in 5 years. Right. So I'm always thinking like, how can I build relationships with them? How can I help them? We've been, for example, Talent Case is organizing recruitment training. And we are going there. They are kind of super early on their career, most likely not fit for us at all. They're actually already planning to go to other companies to work, but kind of when you can provide a lot of value for them, bringing new people for the industry, it really helps in the long run to build your brand as well.
Yeah. No, definitely agree. And I think, when we're talking about junior people, it's also important to make the distinction that even though they're junior, we want to find the high potential ones, right?
Exactly.
The most promising individuals. And I feel like the way we look at it is we've kind of worked backwards there as well. And I think all organizations should do this, is look internally, right? Are you a company where a top performer would want to go to? What are the things that they value in their day-to-day work? And think they're just starting out their careers, right? So, they want to learn. They want to be able to make an impact right away. They want to kind of see how their work translates into the results, right? And of course, they want to be compensated fairly. But I feel like those are kind of the big three ones that, companies should consider. And the way we do this is we very much profile ourselves for junior hires. We profile ourselves as the best way to learn SaaS sales, in all of Finland. I think We have a very strong track record of that. We're also, a lot of our people get headhunted later on to join bigger companies, think Salesforce, Oracle, HubSpot type of deals. And I think it's a very kind of lucrative proposition for somebody who's just starting out their career, where we can communicate that, hey, you join us and we're going to teach you A to Z, the secrets to SaaS sales.
Exactly. And I think that kind of cooperation is very good for kind of candidate research.
Right.
So kind of even though those are things that are kind of valuable for candidates right now, most likely in 5 years, people are waiting other things from the place that they want to work with.
Right.
So I think through that one, you can make sure that you always know, hey, here are the things that people are appreciating in the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's a lot of studies going around right now. I think Iltalehti published one. I don't know if you saw it, but it's the kind of things that people value. It seems to be changing pretty rapidly. Yeah. And I think it has a lot to do with the macro, backdrop and the kind of general employment situation. So I think you're 100% correct when you say that it's going to, vary over time.
Yeah, exactly. I think like one idea regarding what you mentioned, like for example, your people being headhunted. Like I loved an idea from a guy called P. Playa about kind of owning the problem. And what I mean by this is that every company who brings in people, those people are leaving at some point. And you can either kind of struggle against that, or you can kind of own that one. Correct. So for example, if in your case, you notice that, hey, a lot of people are actually moving to Salesforce, kind of turning it around. So it's not a problem, but it's actually our value proposition.
Exactly. Yeah.
Come to work for us. Within 3 years, one of the biggest SaaS companies in the world will hire you for a great salary, for a great role. Like really owning that problem in a way.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I feel like, optimally, we'd love to keep the high performers within the organization. Right?
Exactly.
But I feel like that's what you said about owning the problem is 100% true, right? Because what I often say is good people, they're only on loan. We don't own those people. Yeah. As long as we can offer them attractive career steps, developments, a great culture to work in, we want them to stay with us. Yeah. But it's on us to kind of offer the circumstances and offer the area where they want to stay with us instead of leaving somewhere else.
Exactly. And I've been thinking about that same in kind of our own business, like being an agency working with fast-growing SaaS companies, and like what the value proposition should be for the kind of our hires. Yeah. I've been thinking about kind of two things, like come work for us. Then in 3 years, you are either going to be a head of talent acquisition in a fast-growing SaaS company, or you will be launching your own talent acquisition business. Yeah. And kind of really kind of giving the value proposition that we help you get there.
Yeah, I think that's powerful because, I'd imagine you guys are looking for very entrepreneurial people who very kind of want to own their job, who are actually already very good at it, right? And when you have that scope and criteria, I think it narrows out the people who you wouldn't want to talk to in the first place.
Exactly. But hey, when kind of hiring junior salespeople, like onboarding them is super crucial. You need to invest a lot of time, a lot of money on that one. So can you share a bit more, like how do you do onboarding? What are the most important parts of successful onboarding and making sure that people will succeed in their job?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I mean, to be completely transparent, I think we do a good job. I think there's still a lot of work to do. It feels like often onboarding, much of the onus drops onto the immediate manager, right? And the kind of way we do it, we have a 3-pronged approach to it, where we have a 2-week, very kind of intense training program to kick things off with. We have specifically tailored training programs for each of the roles that we have in our entry-level roles.
Yeah.
And those are kind of designed to cover all the key aspects related to our products, our sales methodology, different units, to kind of get the overview, kind of a crash course in all things Meltwater, right? So kind of very theoretical, but also very early on, and this is kind of the second part of the 3-pronged approach, is we start to involve the new hires in the day-to-day work very, very quickly. So, they'll be listening into their managers' calls. They'll be joining others from different units to get perspective, to see what's going on. And of course, in the beginning, it's so much information to take in. It's kind of what there's a Finnish saying where I forget, but there's so much info coming in. You need to be kind of very attentive, very intense. But then also the third part is we have a theoretical or kind of online training environment where similarly to the training calendars, we have tailored approaches to each role just to kind of support that path. It's not primary, but it's there to kind of help out the first two.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of a few additional questions to that one. Like, first of all, kind of regarding goals.
Yeah.
Like I think, at least for me, when starting in a new job, it is super crucial that I have kind of clear goals. And now let's look at the thing from a sales perspective. Like, what kind of sales goals do you set for the people? Like, are there like kind of revenue goals and then some kind of like activation goals? Like, I need to do this many meetings or this many calls or build this kind of list of potential customers, or how does that work?
It's a very good question. Let's take, for example, people who start out in our new business unit. We have a ramp up target. So, for the first 4 months, I believe, for their target, they don't have to reach the full target, right? So first off, it's fair. I think that's important. They have to feel that it's fair and it's achievable, right? But we don't actually even focus that much on the target in the beginning. We measure our people in new business, just, euros sold per month, right? So that's it's the North Star, but we don't focus on that with new people, right? For new people, it's all about instilling the habits that we want to kind of teach them, in terms of activity, in terms of the language they use, the pitches, the preparation. So we have quantitative measures there as well. How many pickups do you have per day? But it's also very qualitative in the sense that I think whenever somebody joins us, and especially as a junior talent, I feel like we have a unique opportunity to kind of reinforce the models that we know work well to those people. They don't have habits they've learned somewhere else that we feel like, might be a hindrance. So I feel like we just have a very good opportunity to teach them the kind of Meltwater way of doing sales.
Exactly. And I think in hiring, like everyone who has ever done a lot of hires, you always end up in a situation where you make some wrong hires. Yeah. And I think you have a lot of data on like doing a lot of hires. So like if you would be kind of hiring a lot of junior salespeople, like how big part of them should be successful? Like, do you, for example, have any data on like from 100 junior salespeople you hire, how many will be successful, let's say within a year and still working for us?
Yeah, that's a super good question. That's a tough question. I think we first need to define what success looks like, right? Because that's going to look different at 3 months compared to 6 months and then a year, right? I think if we look at a year, I think success for us might look like somebody who's starting to consistently be on target, for example, and are looking to take their next step already within their Meltwater career. It's hard to say percentages, right? But I think the methodology that we have is, since we're focused on the process, it's very process oriented from the beginning. We're very confident that if in our system a person does X, Y, and Z steps, and there's data to back it up, they're doing the work, they're eventually going to succeed. And if they're putting in the effort and doing, what we're requesting them to do, that's typically a very kind of fruitful combination. And it takes longer for some people, right? Some people crack the code in 3 months. For some, it takes 6 months. Some don't come online until 12 months. But it's paradoxical. We have fantastic salespeople who only cracked the code at 12 months, who are now doing an absolute killing and have perfect results.
Yeah. Can you share a bit on how your success is measured, and as a talent acquisition manager?
Yeah, absolutely. We have headcount goals, and I'm responsible for the Nordics talent acquisition team. So I also have 2 people I work with. So I'm also measured on their success in a way, right? But we have headcount goals that we have to reach yearly. And that, of course, all ties into pledge. We want to sell X million dollars a year. We need this many people. It's all estimates and kind of numbers all the way down. But headcount is one. Then I'm also measured on different employer branding activities. What are we doing to really get our name out there? What are the concrete kind of action steps? And this is more qualitative, right? And I think employer branding as a topic, very hard to measure in a very kind of effective. I think there's no standardized way in a sense. Those are the two big ones. And then there's different special projects related to onboarding. And depending on the year, there can be other stuff as well.
Yeah, because I was thinking like, do you have anything regarding on kind of retention of people? Because I think that's, I think it's quite typical for a lot of organizations that kind of you are measured until person starts. Yeah. And then kind of it's easy to optimize that number. Like if that would be the only goal to get as many people as possible, it's kind of easy to bring in wrong people actually. True. But then if you are measuring like how many of these people are successful, let's say in 6 months, 12 months, or are still staying within the company for a long run, I think that's an interesting metric as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's also a team effort, a lot of it, right? Because
exactly.
When somebody comes on board, we have as a collective, the hiring team, we've made that decision, right? But after that, it's very much also on the manager, the unit director, to kind of how they make that person succeed. And of course, even if we do things perfectly, not everyone's going to succeed. But we can definitely influence our odds of somebody succeeding by doing the right things.
Yeah, totally agree on that one. And I think it's super kind of easy to blame others. Yeah. But what I've noticed now, kind of working in an agency and talking with a lot of customers, I hear a lot of stuff like, hey, we hired a salesperson, but they didn't succeed. It was the agency's fault. They did a wrong hiring decision. And it's never that one, actually.
No, very rare.
There is, like always, first of all, a lot of people involved in the hiring decision, but then the onboarding process, like, are we even kind of giving a good place for salespeople to succeed? Like if you don't have proper onboarding, proper sales process, it is quite hard to actually succeed in the role.
Yeah, especially if it's a junior hire, right? I think someone more senior can thrive despite a lack of, proper onboarding processes. But a very junior role, I think, needs a lot of guidance. And it should never be micromanagement, but it should be, like you said, a kind of space where they can grow and where they feel like they're supported and they can learn.
Exactly. You have this kind of quite strong approach on kind of career designs and making sure that there is a lot of kind of career paths within the company. So can you share a bit more on that one, like how structured it is when a new junior salespeople start within the company? Mm-hmm. Like, do they already know, like, hey, I need to hit these goals and then I will become a manager or I will become something like that?
Yeah, no, but that's a great question. I feel like just to kick things off with, it's part of the broader discussion that we started earlier. We're looking for people, the high performers, the driven ones, the ones that want to go far in their career. And when we recruit people like that, I feel like we need to create career opportunities for them. It's also for the good of the business, right? So their business keeps developing, but it's also great for the individuals since we can actually genuinely offer them career paths within the organizations that are viable and valid and attractive to them. But the reason we do that is, or the way we do that rather, is it's a selling point during the candidate experience, very attractive to a lot of people. But the moment they step in the door, very early on, we start those discussions with the people. And it's also very, it's also very dependent on the person. What do they want? Do they, broadly speaking, we have a management track and then we have more of a kind of sales track. And in the management roles, you'll still do sales, but they're two kind of different tracks that you can choose. And of course, depends on the role. But the way we do talent management, I think, just to very quickly touch upon that because it relates to this, is we have weekly one-on-ones. Of course, every manager has their own kind of style in doing that. But then we also have quarterly performance reviews, QPRs we call them. And that's always an opportunity for us to discuss the kind of bigger vision, bigger picture. Where is that person going within the organization? And like you said, what does it take to get there?
Yeah, I really like that idea. I think a big challenge in a lot of companies, for example, if I think about my past, has been that I haven't had a kind of clear visibility on what will be happening next. Like I've known that, hey, this is a big company. There might be some opportunities, but I haven't exactly know like how to get there, what is expected from me. So I really kind of like that approach, like telling people, discussing with them all the time, like, hey, where you want to go and kind of helping them to get there and kind of really that they realize like, hey, here are the things that I need to get done before getting there.
Yeah. And exactly. Like you said, it's at the end of the day, it's very simple, but it's simple on paper, right? But the way we do it in the day-to-day work, week to week, it's not always straightforward, right? Because the big picture can be, I want to be a sales manager with a team in a year. And then what do I have to do to get there? And the roadmap may be clear, but then, you need to execute. And how can we create an environment where daily the people feel inspired, they're in to do the work, they want to advance and take those steps in order to advance their career. But that said, I feel like the fact that we have visibility on like that very clear connection is probably one of the biggest reasons that our junior hires tend to do very well and advance rapidly within the company.
Yeah, exactly. Based on kind of everything you shared, it feels like this strategic decision on hiring junior people has paid off. But I think every time, like even though you make kind of good decision, there are kind of the bad things or the challenges. Yeah. So what would you say that has been the biggest challenges for you as a company going through that road?
In hiring junior people?
Yeah,
that's a great question. I think to an extent, junior hiring can be unpredictable. Even though we have a very strong model for it, a good track record, it's just very hard to forecast who's going to succeed and who's not going to succeed. And I think always recruitment, it's a game of probabilities, right? Anybody who says they have 100% success rate on hires is lying, I think. So it's how do we play those probabilities? And I think that's kind of emphasized when speaking about junior hires. The other part of it is, I think, in general, we then have a very junior organization. When we focus on junior hires, I think by design that leads to the fact that we have a lot of junior talent within an organization. And I think that's a trade-off in a sense where if we did things differently, we may have a more senior organization. But I guess it's also a good thing in the sense that we have more direction of where we're going. And in Finland, for example, we're very grateful to have a management team who's very kind of more senior already, but they know the kind of model we operate with and then can help those junior people advance.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you got a lot of good ideas about SaaS talent acquisition. If you enjoyed the episode, feel free to share it on your social so others can hear it too. And if you have a topic in mind that you would like me to cover in this podcast, share it with me as well. I'm Samuli, CEO and co-founder in TalentBee, where we help fast-growing SaaS companies in their talent acquisition. Make sure to follow us, make sure to follow this podcast, and have an awesome week. Bye-bye.